Revelation, Chapter 9. On the second day of July, my landline phone rang. I always get a landline despite the cell phones because the cell phone seemed unstable in the early 2000s. Technology was just introduced into society. "Hello," I said. "Honey, it's your mom. Your grandpa Jed is having a 4th of July party. It's going to be fireworks, big bean roast, and a lot of friends and family. He would like you and Alice there and whoever you want to bring." "I'll be there, and tell Grandpa Jed I'm bringing some friends," I said right before I hung up the phone. Looked at Alice, and she sat on the couch doing some paperwork. "My Grandpa Jed is having a party on the 4th, and would like you and I to be there. We can bring other people too," I said. "Sounds awesome," Alice replied. After Alice's heart attack, she could not return to work, and I was filing for unemployment. The pet store owner did not want the responsibility for any problems that could occur, but we make an exception. She could go back to work, but the best job for her would be something to do that did not involve heavy lifting. Hopefully she would get unemployment because the only thing we had to live off was my Social Security check. "Good, I'm almost done," she said as she signed her name to the application. The day of the 4th, as usual, we had a late start getting to the party. I invited Max, Brendon, Bam, and Brenda. They were probably already there, I thought. Anxiety ran through my body. Alice, in a rush, grabbed the car seat with the baby in it, and out the door we went. I looked at the car clock. It was 2 o'clock. We were supposed to be there at 1. My cell phone rang. I picked it up. It was my mom, questioning where we were. "We'll be there in 15 minutes, I said. Uncle Gordon did not live far away. He lived in the next town over. He owned a small farm with plenty of land. He planned on having the party in one of the fields. We pulled up to notice dozens of cars all parked in the field. We looked to our right and saw a lot of people. Some were sitting on tables, some were playing games in the fields. Some were standing around a fire. Giant tents were all around. One of the tents had smoke coming from the inside. "It must be where they're cooking," I said. We walked through the field, greeting others as we went. Walked until we found Uncle Gordon, and there he was, near the outdoor grill. I raised my hand as if to say, "I'm here." I made it. Gordon quickly noticed, and with a smile on his face walked towards me. He said, "There's my favorite nephew, and who's this beautiful young lady?" "It's my wife," I said happily to display all her splendor. "That's right, I missed the wedding. Well, you two, welcome to my 4th of July party. This makes up for the wedding I didn't attend. There's food and drink in the tent to your left," Gordon luxuriously said. I looked around to see if I could see any of our friends. I did not see any, so we decided to stay under the tent to keep Gabriel cool. Not long after, I noticed Brendon grabbing a beer. "Hey you, where are the others?" I said. "Out by the parking lot. We're still waiting for you to arrive." "I'll go get them," Brendon said. They all came up and sat next to us at the picnic table. We started talking about the day, and in the midst of a conversation, Grandpa Jed noticed me and came over. Grandpa Jed was my father's dad. Jed said, "How you doing, sonny?" I introduced him to all my friends. Grandpa Jed and I have always been close, closer than me and my dad. I could always talk to him about anything and everything. In the summer days, I would spend days at his house fishing, watching movies, or talking. Grandpa Jed was my favorite activity. I had not talked to him since my dad left, but I knew we needed to spend some time together. Once Jed left, we started talking and laughing, having a good time. Thought it'd be good to discuss the city. As you know, the spacemen will be back in about 7 months to take us permanent to live in Orion. That's if we vote them in. Because the Earth is covered in the ancient light of the past, here we live our lives as normal, as we've always have. But the reality of Orion will catch up to us. I want everyone's opinion. Are we going to vote in Orion? Brendon was first to speak. My parents showed me the reality of Orion, the foreign, distant alien worlds, and the reality is not of the Earth. I was shown while I was at the hospital. I was not supposed to discuss it, but rather keep it quiet. There is not another reality for either me or my parents. They have always hoped that the city would welcome me into it. As Max and Bam have seen, it appears as if they invited me to live there, not only to live there, but to create. Is there any problems at all with forsaking the Earth, I asked. No, because my parents raised me to live in the expectation of creating. Plus, we cannot contend. If we do not or cannot contend with the police or government, then we do not have an option. I know you have struggled, Brendon, but just knowing you have confidence makes me feel better, I said. Max spoke next. First, I thought that we would be in a lot of trouble until we went through the portal and I saw a ship. Ship took us to gardens as well as the Golden City. I felt complete there, but once we got back to Bam's apartment, I felt the experience was a mistake. Only through a second time in the city would I feel safe, and that was because Todd exists there. Todd and I were best friends until the car accident. Since his departure, I've not felt the same. If I had the option all those years ago, I would have never gotten into the car. Losing Todd was awful, despite his parents did their best to explain that I was still his friend. At the time, I could not look past the ancient light, and now that I cannot go back to living without Todd. When the spacemen come back, I'm going with them. Then Todd and I can come back and forth from the Earth. Wow, I started saying, you're taking a big chance. Could you really leave your family? Not leaving my family, Max explained. I can come back and forth as Todd's been doing. Alice was next and said, I have a baby, and not just a baby, but an experience from the city before we went together as a group. There my future husband told me that we were together and gave me Gabriel. And that future person that I saw in the city was Maple. I wanted a family so bad that I was open to anything, but just recently did I wake up my gravity towards the earth. I tell myself that I will be with my love and baby. I'm not going to the city without Maple. Maple thinks she is lying about the baby or being the father of it. What's it going to take, Maple? Max added. We can always be friends. The city protects us from, like, me losing Todd, for instance. Alice and the baby she carried would deserve that. Brenda included. I've been in college researching the topic. It appears that civilizations around the world had to bend the laws of the earth just to discuss the matter. It is as if everyone knew about Orion but had to keep it a secret. I dug deep into old textbooks, and my conclusion is that the earth is one big conspiracy. All meant for what? I could not figure that out, but I know that when the spacemen come back, I'm going with them. The earth just is not the earth if Orion is the destination. Even if we all got educated so that we could secretly discuss the purpose of the earth, that still is not absolute. I need to be in an absolute reality, not a disguise for something else. I'm scared, but it's the only way. Alice said, we still have 7 months. We should spend that time wisely. What about you, Bam? Any thoughts? Max said. I'm going with the majority. I can't live without my friends, but let me remind you, my parents are still in the fight to cover up Orion. There are others who are like that. We must be quiet and wise. No one outside our group should know about this. Bam's right, I spoke, and continued speaking. I think that if we went, we're going to be in a whole different environment. There will not be any sickness, but I'm not sure if I'll be me if I'm not getting sick. When I was growing up, I embraced the world as it was. I did not think of any other reality. It's hard to make sense of people of Orion just watching us while we struggled. We could have used their help a long time ago. They left the Earth and let us do our own thing. I took responsibility for the Earth, and I would have a hard time handing it over to people who just watched. They watched Max and Todd as Todd went out of his life. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Right now, I'm focusing on Alice. Deep down, I want to live the life she described, what she saw seeing from within the future. Ever since Gabriel was born, I've been living in a dream. I have all new emotions. But I still hurt when I consider that I'm living a lie. Although there is not anyone that can take away who I am. And even if they could, would I want them to? Alice looked at me. I could see compassion in her eyes if she were saying thousands of words at one time. We remain friends whose bond can't be broken. Majority rules. As for now, we go to the city, I said, hiding what I was going to do. But before we go, I want to study some more. Before I or my friends give a vote, I said, buying a little more time. Brendon asked, did anyone catch why the Earth was abandoned? Brendon, according to what I've heard, while in the city, a long time ago when the universe was evolving and the stars of each inhabitable place were still shining, the creatures of the universe started capturing the elements, not just the elements, but the very light of the elements. They would use this power of a negative charge to capture the elements. They would categorize them and give them their rightful place within the universe. Once all the elements were collected, it became a city. That would be the city of Orion. This is the interesting part, I continued. Once they harvested the stars, they began to live without time, and because there wasn't time, they were able to do a lot apart from the light that once shined. Once they noticed that they were missing something, that would be the Earth. The star's light had not arrived here yet. It had not formed on Earth. They began to work to gain the Earth. To them, the stars had died out a long time ago. After Orion noticed that it was missing a giant chunk of light, the creatures had to finish gathering all and attempted to gather the Earth, but the only way to do that was to get inside the time of the people who lived there. That is what Orion had been doing to the people of the Earth, breaking us out of the time of the past and bringing us into the future. Brendon, being surprised, said, "That was a convincing lecture, Maple. The Earth was never abandoned." "No, the Earth was never abandoned." "But what is it?" Max added. "I've not told this to anyone," I said, "but as you all know, the mill where I was working when Mike and I were severely burned. I survived it, Mike did not. Or so I thought he did not. About a week ago I was up late and decided to get a coffee from the gas station. While I was pouring my coffee, Mike came in and paid for it. I knew I must talk to him. As I did, he said, 'Well, a lot.' 'So the Earth is purposely an illusion?' Alice asked. 'I doubt that.' 'That's what I made out of the conversation with Mike,' I said. After that, Alice decided it was a good time to open up about her experience with Orion. 'When I first went to Orion,' Alice said, 'I was shown holograms like Brendon's experience. While I watched him, they tried to explain children. Not just any children, but wildlife. They explained that the living things upon the Earth are, once alive, it needs the proper settings, and those settings were found on Earth. For the animals, the Earth provides water, shelter, food, and other creatures. The people need knowledge, love, and school to grow. Once the creatures are fully grown, they have the option to live in the city. That would mean if they were to live in the city at all.' 'That makes sense to what Mike said about the Earth,' I replied. Max added, 'If these things are true, then we were either collected or not by the city. That would explain why Todd is living there, because Todd was very special to his parents, and I know Todd, he would never abandon the love his parents gave him.' I was listening to the others speak when I happened to hear a dog barking. I glanced over to my left and noticed Grandpa Jed sitting at the table next to ours. Oh no, hope he was not there the whole time. Grandpa Jed noticed me and looked at me, looking at him, and he looked me straight in the eyes and started walking towards me. 'Sonny, I want you to come over to my house tomorrow morning, and we will spend the day together.' I managed to say sure. At the end of the night, Uncle Gordon displayed a small fireworks show. Not impressive, but it was Uncle Gordon's, and I had to love it. Afterwards, we all packed up and walked towards our cars. We said our goodbyes and separated. Just getting home, Alice opened the door to our cozy apartment. She took Gabriel out of the car seat, changed her clothes, and placed her in her crib. I loved how Alice took care of the baby. Her mother instincts would have attracted anyone. I could not help but be in love. The next morning, I was eating breakfast, knowing I was supposed to spend the day with Grandpa Jed. I was hoping it was just like any other day we spent together, but I feared he overheard us at the Independence Party. If he did, what would he say? Would he tell my family that Gabriel was not mine or some other private thing we had discussed the day before? 'I'll be back tonight,' I said to Alice as she was waking up and I walking out of the door. Grandpa Jed lived a few miles away in a rich part of the town. He made a lot of money growing up and could afford a big house. My dad was always proud of Grandpa's work ethics. He would say he set the bar in our family. 'Grandpa,' I said as I opened the door to his white house, 'Sonny, I'm glad you made it. Figured we would spend the day fishing. Grab that tackle box and that fishing pole I bought you. Take it to my truck. We go fishing a lot. You'll probably take me to the same spot, which was not far from his home.' I was right. 2 minutes later, we were pulling out our fishing gear. We walked down into a clearing that overlooked the river. It was a nice day. I put a worm on the hook, looked towards Grandpa, and noticed Grandpa's perfect cast of the river was filled with expectation that he would catch a brook trout. Silence was behind the both of us for a couple of hours before I broke the ice. "Why did you bring me down here?" I asked nervously. "Yesterday," Grandpa started saying, "I overheard your conversation. I want to tell you a strong story that has been passed down from generation to generation. Long ago there dwelled cavemen. These cavemen grew over thousands of generations. Some people believe they might have come from outer space, but one thing we are sure of is when these cavemen began, there were dinosaurs that lived amongst them. The dinosaurs, animals, and cave people lived upon the earth. They constantly worked on their bodies to keep them alive and working in orderly fashion. At that time, the creatures of the earth did not understand that the universe could not stop their existence. At some point, the creatures of the universe decided to have a talk with the cavemen. "We have come to introduce you to our city and hope that you will find goodness due to all the work you have done upon the earth," they telepathically said. The cavemen took that the wrong way and thought they were trying to take away their strength, and because they feared, as every creature does, they casted out the universe's enemies. The more the cavemen thought about the threat of the easy living, they got paranoid and began to fight against themselves. They fought against their own strength, and because of that they grew weaker. Because of their new weakness, they blamed the universe or the creatures of it and began to battle that still happens to this day. Jed went on to say, after much time, the cavemen had a solution to losing so much of their strength. They would put their strength within their surroundings. They spent millions of years walking the earth, casting their strength into stones, plants, animals, and even the sky. Over millions of years, their population grew and expanded. Some of the cavemen thought it good to put their strength within their bodies, but most of them put their evolutionary strength in their surroundings. After some time, cavemen evolved into people, or some of the people. These people would go to the earth for wisdom or advice. That is when they would find the strength that their forefathers had put into the animals, stones, plants, etc. The strength was good for the people who had evolved, but there was a downside to using their strength, and that was they could no longer disagree with the earth, where they would be threatened consciously by disagreeing with the fathers. "Is that why the earth hides certain information, for example the universe?" I asked. "Yes," Jed said. "Everywhere one could go on the earth, they will find bits of information that was stored in the rocks, water, and atmosphere. Their information makes a covering for anything that existed outside the cavemen's ways. Their information will threaten you as it threatened the creatures of the universe, as if you step outside of their reality, although outside of their reality is threatened. Anyways, due to a new reality. If you go beyond the cavemen, you are your own authority per se." I asked, if there was another reality or universe, what would the cavemen do if they were more powerful? "The earth at this time is being used by the creatures of the universe. They could not get rid of the cavemen. Without the cavemen's permission, they decided to use the cavemen as sort of like a grass or covering of the earth, an atmosphere of survival." Maple Jed pauses. "There's a giant computer out there. We're living in a computer. We're living in a personal computer running PBR. They got planets and asteroids as part of their computer, an asteroid as a working function of the computer. A long time ago they pushed us out their back end, and now they've come back to pick us up. The reason we don't know about it is because of these cavemen." "Is the earth being used for breathing?" I asked, wondering if these things I saw about Ryan were the absolute reality. "For creatures to exist, the place that they are born in must be fit for them to grow. The earth is fit for humans and wildlife. The atmosphere of survival causes all to be resistant to the universe, which in turn gives intelligence to the living. These would be great worth to the city. My father and his father and his father at some point had to let go of their own ability to live and had to make peace to survive the universe. You must understand that the cavemen's wisdom would not go much further than the caves. Most of the evolving people and creatures wanted more, for instance a city or a boat. How about a cruise ship, I say. Similar to more stuff, Jed said. For the people to expand their ways and thinking, Jed continued, they had to make peace. Because of their forefathers' mistake, and that peace would make them closer to the creatures out there living in the city. These creatures have always been around, so as soon as people break out of the wisdom of the earth, they are confronted with the universe. and ultimately the original plan that started billions upon billions of years ago. This is what the universe would have happen for the people to find the plan and work as one. The earth is being used for breeding grounds, and a variety of creatures come here to give birth. That would include the lion and bear. My father was born here, and his father was born here, and so on. Our tradition, he went on to say, is to live in the city. If you dig deep down in your heart, commit to our family, and decide that we were friends, then you can expect to have a child before you ever make the child. And that is because the time here on earth is in its own time. Did you receive my father in a similar way as I received Gabriel? I asked. No, Grandpa, Jed replied. I went to the city first and then came back, and everything was the same as when I left. My father never knew I was gone, but I know who did receive their child in a way that was like yours, and that would be your father. According to him, while he was still growing, a baby showed up in your parents' newly purchased home. At first, they did not know what to do with it. They were confused, but because the baby appeared without anyone causing a baby to appear there, your mother decided to keep it. She had always wanted a child, but could not have children. The baby that your parents found was you. Yesterday, when I overheard your conversation with your friends, you had mentioned Gabriel. That is why I brought you out here today. I wanted to comfort you, and not only comfort you, the idea of having a child, but the loss of your father as well. Your father said days prior to his disappearance, he was going home to create the part of life that did not exist. When you appeared on his living room floor, that part of life that spoke truth, his truth. You have an option to live in the city, Jed continued. You and your friends. And if you do not go, you will be like your father, never knowing if the child you raise is yours. That is why he had to leave, to know that he had his truth. He'd want the same for you. The only reason I'm up on the earth is to make sure your father got to his destination. But now I see you missing some of the best moments in life. I want you to know and love Gabriel as yours. You must go to the city. Afterwards, we can all come back and play a family, a rich family. As the conversation was ending, I felt a pull on my line. I have a fish, I said. Pulled it in, and sure enough, it was a fish. I fought and slowly reeled in an 18-inch brown trout. The day had come to an end, and my grandpa drove me to my car. I love you, Grandpa, I said. I got into my car and drove home.